Good. I'm going to hit the go live.
All righty.
Mhm. And I believe we are live. So welcome, gentlemen, Father Michael Butler and Jakob Brand. We are going to be doing our first in what we hope to be a regular installment of Ask Men on various topics where people can call in and ask us questions. And we get to talk as well I get to at least talk with some of the most interesting people that I know. So nice to see you guys. How are you guys doing this Monday evening?
Well, you say that to all of your guests.
Yeah, but that's the requirement to getting to do this with me. I get to talk with.
Uh,
Yeah.
no, it's okay. Here in Detroit, it's actually sunny. The day is beautiful out, and kind of a pity to be indoors, at the moment. But all in all, life's sweet. Where are you, Jakob?
I'm from Germany. So yeah, I'm from Germany, and so in our conversation also, if some things are a bit rough around the edges with the language, something not very clear, just also for the listeners, just ask one more time. So I hope to clarify. Yeah, I'm from Germany in the near Cologne.
Yeah.
Near Cologne. Okay.
Yeah. So most people who follow this channel probably know who Father Michael Butler is. For anyone who doesn't know, he's a archpriest I think is it 28 years now, Father Michael?
Almost 29.
Right,
Yeah.
in the Orthodox Church, yeah. Also an amateur bodybuilder. So it has something to say about the world of testosterone, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Anything else I should mention, Father Michael, in our brief introduction? We're doing we've done a whole lot of different men's stuff together. You've come over to the European Men's Gathering several times and proved to be a really, really big hit over with that. And the next thing on the cards is actually a little trip to Essex, which we're planning this summer, which I think we're going to get to talk more about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really know what
Pilgrimage.
else to add.
Yeah.
Yeah, except no, I'm just the old guy here, but I'm okay with that. I'm reconciled with being the venerable gray beard in these sorts of things, and it's all
Was it
okay.
the silver fox? Was that the term?
Ooh, listen to you. Yes.
Okay.
You shouldn't encourage me. You know that.
So yeah, Jakob, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what your credentials are around
Mhm.
the issue of testosterone?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my work is also primarily based in Germany, and there I have a business around testosterone since 7 years. And I got into it because mainly I fixed my own issues with it. I have a history of trying all sorts of diets. I was paleo, I was vegan, vegetarian, keto, and all this kind of stuff. And they all have very convincing arguments. Um, but when I found this testosterone stuff really made a difference because then I have had something to measure, something black and white, and that really helped me and was also pretty logical. It was not like just do it for the animals or just do what your ancestors did. So and it was really something in my body. And yeah, the other part was the prostate cancer. Um, my dad developed it, and then I really took a deep dive into these issues as well, how the hormones are involved there. And yeah, from there I started the blog. And yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just talking about the high PSA number thing just before we
Mm,
started
Yeah.
streaming, actually, because Father
mhm,
Michael, yeah, do you want to share, Father Michael?
Yeah. I had a little scare myself. I had some blood work done about a month ago, and my own PSA was suddenly, twice the normal range.
mm,
Here was like 3 and below. It was like 6.1.
mhm,
And this was just alarming because the last time I had it checked, what, 6, 8 months ago, it was perfectly normal.
mm,
Probably a little prostatitis. I was put on an antibiotic, a strong antibiotic for 2 weeks, and that seems
mhm,
to have taken care of it. But there is an older retired priest attached to my parish who spent a year and a half dealing with prostate cancer, and he had a terrible time with it.
mhm,
Thank God he's better now, and probably, they don't think it's going to come back, and there was no metastasis, or infiltration.
mhm,
So I think they got it all. But still, it kind of hit too close to home for me. And as a
Mhm.
63-year-old man, you know, benign prostate hyperplasia or prostate cancer, becomes an issue. I know it is for some younger men, and like Paul and I were both saying, we both have friends who died of prostate cancer in their 50s. So, yeah, it's a heavy subject, but it's probably one that's worth folding into our discussion today.
What was the statistic you said? By the age of 80, what was the percentage of men that have this kind of?
Yeah, Jacob, you confirm me on this, but I think the statistic is that by the time we're 80, almost all men have BHP or some kind of prostate cancer.
Yeah, it's a really crazy number. And regarding the testosterone issues, maybe also for the listeners, the main thesis is that testosterone speeds up the prostate cancer when it already developed. So one of the main treatments in Germany, at least, is to just bring testosterone levels to 0. But it's interesting that they then developed a term called castrate resistance cancer cells, when the cancer still grows, even though you have 0 testosterone. And there are quite some interesting studies about it, that also estrogen can elevate PSA levels and not testosterone. So then a whole other world develops where you can look into it if not estrogen is really the culprit in all this and not testosterone, because estrogen is made from testosterone in the male body. So yeah, I gave my dad like a whole book of studies to give his doctor and check it up, but yeah.
I'd definitely like to dive a little bit more into that kind of stuff. I'm curious to learn more as well. My father's had high PSA numbers, and yeah, I realized, like, I'm 42, and I've definitely, I think we can start off though by talking a little about like where we stand as far as this discussion is concerned, and it's something that's difficult to know for sure. The science isn't completely in about this stuff. I'm shocked at how little attention is given to these issues, considering how massively important they are, and it's life and death, and just men's health seems to have been incredibly low on the agenda for a very long time. And so as men, we need to, we are living longer at the moment. It's not sure it's going to continue that way, but it is becoming more and more relevant to look into this. So personally, I've always seen testosterone as a quality that is a gift from, that men become stronger. They are able to endure doing difficult things, hard things, even going through suffering. And I've even understood that testosterone is actually something that makes men be able to enjoy doing hard things to a certain extent. Like we can actually derive pleasure from it. It wires our hormonal systems a little bit that way. So for me, I really see as well, just in Maniphesto, we see masculinity as an incredibly positive thing. We actually define masculinity as the aspects of other men that we love the most when we spend time together with other guys as well. That's what we see as masculine. It's the qualities of men that are the most appreciated, the most valued amongst men. And so, and one of the things that happens when you spend time with other masculine men is that you get higher testosterone. I've read even something like that, just smelling the sweat of other men will increase your testosterone levels, when you're in the gym or doing some kind of martial arts or something like that as well. So is that a naive and unfounded position to take on, guys, that we're to say like we really like testosterone in this group here?
I'm fond of what I have.
Yeah, definitely. What I also find interesting is that now there's this whole culture of gender is just a social construct, and women can be men and men can be women and all this kind of stuff. But with testosterone, you really see that it isn't this social construct at all, because testosterone just promotes this stereotypical masculine, not only the mental aspect, but also physically, like with beard growth, genitalia growth, in all areas of life.
Square jawline, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What would you say when you say like mentally? What are the mental kind of like things that happen to a person who has a high level of testosterone?
Yeah, the big part is emotional stability. Emotional stability, that you keep calm under pressure. And what you said with the enjoy suffering and get up when you fall, there are actual studies about it that you can predict if a man just gives up when he fails, when his testosterone is low, and that he continues and gets up when his testosterone is high. So yeah, that's a big part, and also just the well-being of a man, how well you feel in your skin. I guess, Father Michael, you can say more about that.
Yeah, that and initiative. It's something. Initiative, clarity. I have known men to start testosterone replacement therapy, and they all report like mental clarity, like you didn't know there was a fog, or like when the power goes out in your house and suddenly you thought the house was quiet, but now it's really silent and you miss the background noise that was always the hum of the refrigerator and all. Like all of that goes away, and they just say, wow, I didn't know that I had all that noise, all that chaos in the back of my head, and it's gone. And they have initiative and drive, and they want to get out of bed in the morning. They're ready to go do something. You know, it's not a bad set of qualities to have.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's like I don't know how much we want to go into it, you know, but it seems like this is quite a countercultural thing that we're dealing with here. And
there is that. I will speak to that. From the men's work that I do here and the studies that I look at here in America. It was quite a thing 20 years ago, 30 years ago, to get testosterone classified as what we call a Schedule III drug, which makes it basically like a narcotic, that you must have a doctor's prescription in order to get it, and that you can be charged with a felony if you buy it or use it or sell it, sort of in the black market or something like that, or use it without a doctor's prescription. So it is illegal, for guys like, if you just want it in the gym because you just want to get big and, you buy it off the street, that's actually illegal in the United States. And yet, as Jakob was saying, in an age where transgenderism is now all the thing, they are perfectly willing to give testosterone to little girls. But an older man who's beginning to have some physical decline, that is controversial. And no, we wouldn't want to do that. That would just encourage, toxic masculinity and all of those terrible traits that we really don't want to acknowledge. So I think there really is kind of a there are some cultural taboos and attitudes surrounding it that don't always benefit men who might benefit, from taking better care of their own hormonal health.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the different approaches that we've, as three men, have tried to address this issue. And my path in the last 2.5, 3 years now has been, I've actually been engaging in the Danish Home Guard in the military and doing the most difficult, physically demanding, challenging training that I could possibly find in the Danish military system. And I've actually just come back from a kind of special forces selection camp, which was certified at NATO Special Forces kind of level. Which was definitely the most difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life, I think, especially given I was 42 years old and together with a whole lot of pretty young guys. But one of the things that, while this has been great and useful for me, I also have to say that at the same time, I'm seeing what I can only really call is like the kindergartization of the armed forces in the West, and how it's become like, so run by different bureaucratic political ideologies and kind of like limiting things that first of all, there's this like very strong drive to find people who feel offended by what they call it, krænkelse in Danish, people who somehow been feel offended by like a sexual approach or something like that. And so there's like this big drive to find that as well, but then just limiting what we're allowed to do because things are too dangerous. And so like we're not allowed to like do a whole lot of different training exercises that are necessary. So we're trying to teach people how to, become, at the end of the day, efficient at killing other human beings. But at the same time, we're putting all these limitations on things. So we're not allowed to, for example, cross a body of water, even if it's like just 1 meter deep, without having like a lifeguard and different kind of safety things set up in front of us and stuff like that, because like there could be someone that drowned in that case or something like that. So
Oh, well,
it's like,
well, I hope you have lots of lifeguards on a battlefield, I suppose.
it's quite ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's painful to see this happening. And I think in some ways I kind of see, like, now that in Europe we actually have war kind of encroaching and people are getting ready for war, and you see a lot of talk about war, then you'd think that some of the stuff, and I think some of it has died down a little bit, but at the same time, I just feels like they can't kill it. Like, it's kind of coming in, and there's this kind of, like, feminization, and they're doing everything they can to get as many female soldiers in as well. And to do that, they have to drop all the standards about what's possible to do. And they're really pushing now. Denmark has the government's just put forward a proposal now that participation in we have conscription in Denmark, and it's equal for men and women now as well. So all men and women are treated exactly the same, according to the government's proposal for all of the practice in the armed forces. And so it's a very, very strange thing to be doing, just as we, are scared that we're going to be going into a war as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there are common jokes here, that the army is basically to kill people and break things, but that they're very much concerned about pronouns nowadays. So.
Yeah, there's been some, especially American military, like, recruitment adverts, which are more focused on kind of the woke political agenda and then I've seen people, like, kind of putting that up against, like, the Russian spirit, whatever it is, forces advertising, and just saying, like, okay, is this really what we're trying to do here? Like,
yeah.
What is we're doing? It's like my job, and as a part of the Danish military, is I have to defend Denmark in the case of a war, right? And so that's my job. But I really see that the thing that we can do to defend Denmark the most is actually by strengthening the backbone and the masculine core and the groundedness of our culture, of our people. And that's very much what the Home Guard's about in many ways as well. It's about actually building people up and giving them that backbone. We're not expecting that Denmark's going to be invaded anytime soon, but I think that the thing that we need to hold ourselves together. The threats are actually, the greater threats are the ones that are close to us and on the inside than the ones that are far away and on the outside.
Just as you say that, I'm reminded, that Arnold Schwarzenegger there in Austria. There's some strong speculation that the Austrian army was secretly administering testosterone to its military forces when in the 50s or 60s, when he was in the army. That's when he he discovered he was a very easy responder, responded well, to it. And that was sort of what set him on his path. I don't know if it's true or not. Maybe it's apocryphal, but there it is. I'm curious though, Jakob, forgive me, we've not met before, and I understand that, well, from your own beginning, you do work in naturally promoting higher levels of testosterone in men. I'm wondering what that looks like, or what's the current prescriptions? What are the usual sort of things that that Joe average listener to us might want to take a look at?
Yeah. To give a little context, for me, the natural route, or maybe we get into it a little more later, but for me, the natural route is really the best point to start, because even if you decide to get injections someday, that can really backfire if there are still some problems lingering that are not fixed, and then you just get the injection and didn't fix the real problem. But when I start with a natural optimization, really the approach is to first get off the brake of your production, and that's something we in the West especially we are doing really hard. Like, every one of us has habits that really limits his testosterone production, because you introduce so much endocrine disruptors, xenoestrogens into your life. I already talked with Paul about that a little. But yeah, with the personal care products you use, shampoo with parabens, for example, with the plastic we are consuming every day, like the WWF I don't know if it's also in English, but an organization that is for animal care and so on estimates that
World
the
Wildlife Fund, yes.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. That the average human eats the amount of plastic that is in one credit card per week. And that's crazy. Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
And that would say that's the biggest break on our natural testosterone production is these things that we're ingesting.
Yeah, exactly. All this artificial stuff, and of course, then the sedentary lifestyle that we are all sitting so much. And yeah, testosterone is an anabolic hormone. It is released to build the body, but if there's nothing to build, the body can just doesn't have to produce anything because testosterone is really costly. So yeah, and then it isn't necessary.
That's well put. I like that. Yes, it is metabolically costly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there has to be a reason to produce it.
Yeah, and it is not necessary for life. It's necessary for reproduction, but not to survive. So if you are in a very low state, the body doesn't have to produce it. You can still live. And yeah,
not happily.
Yeah, not happily, but but you survive. Yeah.
What are the worst foods, or what are the worst sources where we're getting this stuff in? If we're talking about the diet.
Yeah, one of the biggest sources of plastics is fish, actually. But a really bad food source in general, in my opinion, polyunsaturated fatty acids, and these are the classic fats we eat every day, like sunflower oil, how do you call it? Soybean oil, canola oil, and all these.
We call from seeds. Is this all of the talk about oil from seeds?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, industrial made, and they are polyunsaturated and highly unstable, oxidize quickly, and they really cause much damage in the body.
Okay.
Olive oil, is it better to be using olive oil?
Yeah, it's mainly monounsaturated, but still it is better to use it cold, not like for frying or anything. And then there it's better to use really saturated because it's stable and it doesn't oxidize.
So like, butter for frying?
Yeah.
Or for frying coconut oil?
Yeah, also saturated. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Because it's solid at room temperature?
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the rule of thumb then for getting off your ass and getting moving for a man? I guess it's different what age you're at, but
exactly. And it's also really dependent on your activity level. There are actual studies about this. When men mainly sit at their desk, they get a boost in testosterone if they start doing walks every day for 15 minutes. Then you really expect see a jump in your testosterone levels. So of course, the most researched form of training is like weight training, and there you can expect the highest increase of testosterone. But really, just getting active is the most important factor, and having fun with it. I guess if you have to force yourself to the gym, it's better to just do anything. Go climbing, go skiing, go running, whatever.
Okay. Maybe, Father Michael, do you want to talk a little about gym? Because I know that you're a big speaker for getting off your ass and going to gym. Like, obviously there's a testosterone advantage, but I think that helping to build a broader case for the advantage of working out is helpful as well, seeing it from multiple different angles.
Yeah. So someone whom I know and respect often says that fitness is the gateway drug to men's self-improvement. And so that if you can get men to exercising, you can teach them how to change their lives. Because the skills that you learn in the gym or with exercise are fungible across every aspect of your life. So like frequently, I will tell people, you start going to the gym, you will not see results for the first month. Your closest friends will not see results for 2 months. The rest of the world will not see your results for 3 months. And so what are the immediate payoff? You make a plan. You stick to a plan. You learn to work through pain. You get up and go even when you don't want to go. You delay gratification. those sorts of things. And then you build habits and you begin, to respect yourself because you're keeping a promise to yourself. And those sorts of things, once you can get them started in the gym, really, if you can be disciplined in working out or disciplined in going for your run every day or disciplined in your martial arts, you can be disciplined in the rest of your life as well. So it really is one of the foundational things. And then also, excuse me, also, as you say, exercise is one of the best treatments for depression that men have as well. So, if you're a little depressed, even maybe a little bit anxious, feeling a little down or a little blue, just getting into some regular exercise every day, just like what Jakob says, just taking a walk is enough. It can substantially lift your mood. You feel better, which means you're likely to perform better at your job or be more available and present in your relationships. And so, yeah, it just helps out in all kinds of aspects of life. And heavy lifting is one of the best things you can do for raising your testosterone, because as Jakob says, if it is expensive on the body to make testosterone, you're going to have to stress the body really hard to force it to produce more so that you have it available to rebuild the muscle tissue that you've broken down in the gym.
Yeah, such an important point. Yeah. I before our talk, I looked for the article, but I didn't find it on the spot. It was during the pandemic, where researchers made a model of how the average human would look in 2030 if we just continue our pandemic habits, like sitting all day in front of a screen that don't go out and everything. And it was like hunked over and really, really thick. Yeah, exactly. Completely pale. And
pale.
Yeah.
Squinting in sunlight like Gollum,
Yeah.
That reminds me of, so I've been reading a lot of Father Seraphim Rose, who's an Orthodox monk, if anybody doesn't know him recently, and I'm probably irritating everybody around because I keep on referring to him in my conversations, but this guy's really had a massive impact on me. And one of his key points throughout his writings actually is that he really goes after this core belief that we have in our modern society today, that everything's just getting better all of the time, and we don't even have to do anything. We're just like basically evolving into become these like enlightened beings, and so we have this real fundamental belief in progress. And what he points out is that, like it could be that, like, certainly on a material level, we're becoming much better at manipulating reality to produce far more material wealth for ourselves and abundance as far as our riches is concerned. But when it comes to our spiritual development, then there's a lot of signs that say that things are going in exactly the opposite direction. And I think especially we've been talking a little bit about depression, but, just look at suicides, alcohol and drug misuse, and, the state of just men today, loneliness, our inability to even reproduce, it just seems like there's a massive misdirection of things as well. And so, I really think that there's a big case to be made that, we need to be careful of this belief that everything's just getting better, because it seems like there's some serious things that are not getting better at the moment. And when it comes to this, there's a very, very scary signs. And I think if you haven't, Jakob, I don't know if you can tell us a little bit about the statistics of it, but it's really shocking to see what's happening with our fertility levels and as an individual man, and our testosterone levels as well, which is something that's just not spoken about a lot of the time in our mainstream media, right?
Yeah, definitely. The statistics are that testosterone levels declined or decline every year from 1 to 1.1% every year on average. So the average man today has nearly half the testosterone his granddad had in the same age. And fertility rates even more. They declined 60% since the 70s, 80s. And what you said is really, really an important point, because I also think that we can't expect that, even though there are these statistics and we see the consequences everywhere, that the sicknesses among men, young men, even among everybody, are increasing, chronic diseases increasing, but still there isn't done anything. And I think we really can't expect that that big organizations, big governments will do anything about it. because there isn't an incentive. Like when men are more easily controlled, have low testosterone, I think, yeah, that you don't even need to go into conspiracies or anything. There just isn't an incentive, and it's really up to the individual.
Rather
And
sell us some
also
more vaccines instead of testosterone. Yeah.
Along these lines, so this is typical. One of the things that I think one of the best quotations I've come across with regards to men in society lately. Can I give a plug to somebody else's podcast, Paul?
Of course, yeah, sure.
All right, it's Chris Williamson on his Modern Wisdom podcast. And he was actually on with Connor Beaton, who's well known in men's work in America. And he has a couple of paragraphs here, but it's absolutely germane to what we're saying. He says, trying to work out why men are struggling is largely a thankless task. This is the zero-sum view of empathy. There is an assumption that any attention paid toward men takes it away from women or from some minority group who is more deserving. After all, haven't men had it good enough for long enough? Maybe they should just suck it up for a while. But empathy doesn't work this way. It's not a limited resource. Recognizing the plights of men does not ignore the plights of women, and ultimately, women end up suffering in any case, as this increasing cohort of apathetic, checked out, and resentful men who contribute to the exact lack of eligible partners that women are struggling with. Women who post, boo-hoo, poor patriarchy, all sad, while all complaining about where are all the good men, are committing mating logic seppuku. If one sex loses, both sex lose. Male blaming is something else I see a lot. A common question is, why don't men just do better? Surely they can work harder in school, employment, and health. Chop, chop, men, hurry up, stop being so useless. Well, no other group is told that when they suffer. When they suffer with poor performance or no accolades in the real world, that they should just pull themselves up by their bootstraps. We don't tell any other group, oh, just be vulnerable, get in touch with your feelings, talk about your problems. Instead, we spend billions in taxpayer money and private charities to set up committees, departments, campaigns, and funds to solve the problems. In simple terms, if a woman has a problem, we ask what we can do to fix society. If a man has a problem, we ask what can the man do to fix himself. No, and that's what Jakob is mentioning. Yeah, men have an issue, but there's no government program for it. There's no support. It's not mentioned in the schools. There's no foundations. There's that for every other group.
I mean, there is a certain aspect whereby, like, the facts of the matter is that I think men are just far more expendable than women are. That's the way it's always been. For centuries we send men onto fields with axes to slaughter each other. That's how, like, most of our forefathers have died, right? And so I think that Maniphesto, to a certain extent, is actually built with this understanding in mind. So, Maniphesto runs a network of online groups. And when guys come into that group, a lot of guys are suffering. A lot of guys are in pain. A lot of guys have a terrible story of really doing everything that they can to try and lift themselves up and getting knocked down again and again and again. And what our approach is that, like, we're basically willing to listen to any guy telling his story, but we also just really listen to it, once. Maybe we'll listen twice or three times, but we're not gonna tolerate him just hanging around and looking for sympathy. We're gonna ask that guy to start getting his act together and to start taking the steps to move his life forward in a positive direction and to start creating habits that, just like a small little habit that takes him 5 minutes every day, that's going to start changing the fundamental differences or difficulties that it is that's holding him back in his life, wherever he's self-sabotaging, wherever he's holding, not being able to move forward. And it's hard to find that sometimes. And so sometimes a guy worked really, really hard on something like that, and he'll just get nowhere. And then you'll figure that after like 6 months or a year, and you have to do something else, right? But it's the only thing that we really have. And normally we have to let the guy decide for himself as well. But yeah, I think that, men's self-help or men's improvement, men's, just like, becoming a better man is just, it's different than other groups. When it is men, then we can't afford that somehow. And I don't know if that's going to change.
No, and I don't know that it, well, what needs to change is that other groups everybody needs to give up playing a victim. Because if you are a victim, then you give up agency and personal control over your own life. And I think a lot of men, it's assumed men have agency because, you know, we are in the Marxist scheme of things, we are the great oppressors of everybody else. So everybody else is the victim and we are the oppressors. But the backhanded compliment for that is that we apparently have agency and have ability to act and to form our own lives and to shape our futures. So, I mean, that's the positive side of it. And so, you know, in what I teach and when I talk about mature masculinity is, yes, grow yourself up, man, but also your gifts are there. You give your gifts to the rest of the world to encourage everybody around you, to help everybody else have agency so that their lives can flourish as well as our lives can flourish. So we get everybody out of the victim mindset to where you can do something about your own life.
Do you want to add something in here, Jacob? We have two people who are ready to ask us questions. We're gonna just over half hour into the stream now, but before we bring them in, Jacob, do you want to put in anything else?
Yeah, but what I really found interesting, what Father Michael now mentioned with the take responsibility part, also really fits in nicely to what you said, Paul, with the kindergartization of the military. And this is what I think really happens on a society level, that we are all so infantilized and really used to not take up responsibility for our own choices, our own lives. And yeah, also with Maniphesto, I know, I mean, I know it from the inside perspective that that's what you do there, like take responsibilities. And then, yeah, Father Michael said, help yourself to then help others.
And being held accountable. It's a really powerful thing to be held accountable. Men, I think we've designed a society, and certainly I lived a period of my life where I would kind of with grand plans and ideas of what I was going to be doing with my life and tell other people and impress them. And I'd hold back on doing them actually because I wasn't sure if I could succeed, find all kinds of other things to distract myself with. And then once in a while, like in a massive flurry of activity, I'd try and do something. And that would keep me busy for 3 months, 6 months, and then everything would collapse. And then I'd kind of like, fall down and then take me time to like, slowly build up. And then in some other, grand inspiration, I'd come up with the next plan. And then just was this cycle that I think many men are trapped in these days. This cycle that goes round and round like that. So accountability over the long term, actually building relationships with other people over a long period of time, where you tell them this is what I'm going to go do, guys, and then you actually have to come back the next week and the next month and the next quarter and the next year and tell them like, did you actually do it and how did it go? Yeah.
It's a good question. Did this actually accomplish anything? Yeah. Let's see results.
Good. Okay. Well, let's bring in one of our guests that we have at the moment. Yeah, I should mention that anybody else who wants to ask questions is welcome to. We have the chat on YouTube where people can post questions. And if someone wants to come in here, then they can let us know. We have a couple of Telegram groups where we're inviting guys personally to come in and ask us questions as well. But if someone's watching this on YouTube and wants to ask a question, they can do it there. If you're in one of our Telegram groups, then we're keeping an eye on there as well. And we can give people the link. So what do you say, Father Michael? Is it Dominic or is it Alex? You know both of them. Do we take the wild card or the safe card?
Oh, let's not be safe.
Yeah, okay, well then I know what that means. You asked for it at least. So here we go. Mr. Dominic, I can see you are connected to our audio. So good to see you, Dom. How are you doing this fine evening?
There he is.
Oh yeah, I'm good. Yes, it's 3 guys I love. Oh shit, I've never been on YouTube before.
You make it look good.
Oh, you guys do too. So I'm in my Zoom because my YouTube is not premium, so I can't have 2 apps at the same time. Hello.
Good to see you.
Hey.
How are things going this evening, Dom?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been enjoying listening to you guys, drinking my chamomile tea here.
Was his
Yeah.
best
very relaxed and nice and easy.
Yeah.
And you just recently had an injury problem, a little bit too much working out in the gym. Is that right?
Yeah, for me, the idea of being forced to go to the gym is alien because I love going to the gym. It's like I'm supposed to sit in front of the computer, and then I do that for a little bit, and then I go to the gym to avoid having to sit on the computer. So it's like I guess I got it backwards, but yeah, my knee, I got some weak points in my knee because of surgery, and it blew up, and I had like a hemorrhage, a joint filled up with blood. But
Mm.
that was about 5 days ago, and I'm okay again. In about 3 days, I'll be fine.
Good. Do you have a question for us, Dom?
Yeah, I was gonna think about what to ask you guys. It's not gonna be like top 10 foods or like the top 10 commandments of testosterone, but what I've noticed in my life, and I don't want to move into like conspiracies and stuff, but a lot of guys that I think are high testosterone or like just glowing with sunlight energy or whatever you want to call it, a lot of them are like, working in construction or, security or doing some, bullshit low paid warehouse job. And I think that they're just wonderful guys, and then I see almost like gargoyles, like skeleton vampires who are like millionaires manipulating stocks on the internet, and they could just get blown away from a strong wind. And I almost think, like, I don't know if it's a question, but the modern world doesn't necessarily reward biological testosterone very much, and it seems like it is unnecessary to be successful. So my question is, why do you think that um these high testosterone guys are often like losers, so to speak, in the modern world, and a lot of these like sneaky, slimy computer nerds are somehow the alphas now?
I think that's not necessarily true, because when you look, for example, at Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, they get injected with testosterone and look really, really jacked. So I think like also in this stratosphere, people realize how much testosterone benefits their lives.
Oh.
I think there's something about, so I've moved out in the countryside recently, and I've noticed that a lot of the guys here work as handymen or security, kind of more low paid jobs. And a lot of them really struggled in school. And certainly the school system is not set up for the Danish school system particularly is not set up for like a high testosterone kind of guy. Well, I don't know, maybe Jakob, I'm mischaracterizing high testosterone, but definitely if you are like really need to move your body and you have difficulty sitting still and just focusing, so kind of less cognitive, intellectual type, I guess, especially, then I think you really struggle in our school systems increasingly today. And maybe that's a part, but I don't know if that's connected to testosterone. Personally, I never had a hard time in school. I've always enjoyed school and done well in school. But I think it's more to do with that my parents really, gave me a good example of, and prioritize studying for exams and things like that. So yeah. I'm not sure if I'm confusing things together there.
Well, I don't know if it was a very good question, but it just seems like there's a lot of cool high testosterone guys who are like basically scraping the bottom of the barrel in hard labor jobs. And because maybe it's not just about how much you lift and how much testosterone's in your bloodstream, but I mean, speaking in public or speaking the truth, and maybe testosterone has spiritual qualities, not just, but bones and blood.
Well, I mentioned that earlier, and as did Jacob. Maybe before you got on the call, focus, intentionality, drive are also increased when testosterone goes up. That whole desire to go out and fight. And I'm not talking, being pugnacious and battling, but I mean to get you out of bed because you want to go do your job because you love what you're doing. Initiative, that's the word I was looking for. Initiative and drive goes up.
But those are the qualities that's also going to help you in the world of business, and if you want to become an entrepreneur, or you want to progress, and even in a corporate company, I'd say those are qualities that will help you there, not so much hinder you. So I would definitely say the most successful, like actually I recently found out that a very high percentage of the highest performing Danish businessmen all were in the Queen's Guard, like in the Royal Queen's Guard in the military, which is known as like one of the most intense and difficult programs to go through as well. And very clearly a place where you raise your levels of testosterone at a key age of like the final years of puberty. So I don't think that's a coincidence. And when you meet these guys, like they're very forceful and strong and purposeful. Yeah. But I don't know, is that what you mean by spiritual qualities, Dom, when you say that?
Oh, I'm just thinking, like out loud. I wish I had a list of questions, but I'm just making them up. But I looked up to you guys as like spiritual Christian godfathers, and when I read about the life of Christ, was he high testosterone, or Zoroaster, or Buddha? I know Buddha was a aristocratic warrior caste prince, but when you think about, like, they changed the world, and they weren't necessarily deadlifting or shooting bows and arrows, and I guess Jesus Christ is the most alpha man that ever walked this earth, and he was all about softness and love. So
I think you find more balance there. Yeah, sort of the gentle Jesus, meek and mild, that we often see as, I think, a little bit one-sided. I'm not willing to go the route of American evangelicals who just want to look at the images of Christ from the book of Revelation, where he's just a warrior riding on a horse, all but dripping in the blood of his enemies. But there's a roundness to Christ, and certainly spiritual discipline, as I know you've engaged in, I'm sure, requires an incentive and a drive and a willingness to do difficult things and to force yourself, through boredom, if nothing else, and just slogging through. It's a grind, and that takes a little bit of tea, to get through that.
And I think an important point is that at the end of the day, testosterone is part of the way. It's a tool basically that you can use, and that helps you to fuel your path, but not the end goals. So for example, now we are in Great Lent, and of course, like fasting and all this dietary prescriptions, you could maybe say, are not the best to increase your testosterone, but that's not what it's about. And then at Pascha, you as a reward, you get like the rebound effect when the production starts up again, and so on. But yes. I think exactly like Father Michael said, it's the balance, and keeping in mind what's important at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yes, and as someone who has experienced it, for years going through Great Lent, Paschal gains are real. Jacob is absolutely right. The post-Paschal gains are real. You start eating again, you add back in, good animal proteins, and you are able to lift with more volume in the gym. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just mention on the chat, we have Sebastian who wrote, and he said, if I may challenge you, he doesn't think that slimy nerd is actually winning in life, but being rewarded by a parasitic system. So the low-paid, spiritually rich father of three is actually winning in reality. And my experience as well of having living right in the center of Copenhagen and being surrounded with like, this globalist elite people who are living the high life. What I really saw was a lot of disconnection and kind of people who were just having a paper thin personality that was covering over actually a total lack of knowing who they were and what they were trying to do. And out here on the countryside, people earn a lot less, but it seems like there's a much deeper connectedness and just like the kind of workshop humor. There's guys that come out here and they're busy building a hardball course here, like putting up stuff. And these guys, like, they insult each other in the most loving, beautiful ways. It's kind of like this kind of like really handyman kind of humor that I'm still trying to learn it myself. I give it a stab myself a couple of times, but I've spent way too long living in corporate offices to be particularly elegant at it. But it's really impressive, and I can feel like as these guys, as I get to know these guys, then they kind of poke a couple of jabs at me as well, and they really do it with a good humor as well, right? And yeah, I just it's just this very different way of living, instead of being like, I have these barriers. I was like, oh no, can't have someone who says anything bad about me and, need to protect my ego the whole time. Then there's actually an open exchange between people here, which is just enjoyable and relaxing to experience.
Yes, I got one of my most popular and most controversial social media posts. I pointed out that men communicate by insulting each other, but they don't really mean it. Women communicate by complimenting each other, but they don't really mean it either.
Yeah.
But that humor aside, that male banter, though, it is a kind of verbal jousting, and it is a low grade kind of martial art, a verbal kind of sparring. You're supposed to be able to take the insult and turn right around and throw one right back, and give just as good as you got. And it is a skill to develop, and a lot of people don't understand it, but when you can get it going and get it going well, it's a huge amount of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember hearing Jordan Peterson talking about his work out on the railways in the north of Canada, something like that, where when a new guy came in, they tested him, and if he didn't have like the strength of character, they actually excluded that guy because they were living in a harsh environment and they wanted people who were able to contribute to the social kind of network as well. And so it was done in a way where you want to get in contact with reality with people. And you do that by actually feeling the boundaries with each other. And so as men, we need to stop being so sensitive all the time. We need to be in touch with our feelings, be able to use those to navigate in life, but we don't collapse when people poke at us a little bit, right?
No. Yeah. Well, you need to know, can he stand up to a little criticism? Yeah. Is he going to wither, with the least little insult or something? Is he witty enough to know what's going on and to find his own place in the hierarchy of things? Because we men we're always hierarchical, and you have to contribute something. Yeah. One of the worst things that happens in a group of men is when they stop talking to you and start talking about you, because then everybody else has given up on you. Mm-hmm. And that's a bad place to be.
Good.
I have another question. Maybe on a more practical level, but sometimes when I'm death scrolling through Instagram, which I shouldn't, I guess that's really bad for my T levels. But you see all these like Uberman, these. I guess there's a few like flagship names, but it's like Tonkat Ali, and then like Irish moss and all these exotic herbs, and suddenly you think you have to buy all these things, these exotic potions. And like for me, I've found that like manual labor, weight training, and like eating like beef and eggs, it sounds so like barbaric almost, but it's like, do you think that, guys, you guys are like the expert panel here, but like what's like the top like compulsory superfoods like hack? What can average Joe in consume that won't break his budget to up his tea?
Yeah,
That's gonna be Jakob.
I second that, Jacob. I would like to hear that, and also
Mm.
speak also to all of what Dom calls the potion,
Yeah.
all of the herbal. Talk about that, because it's true. We
Yeah.
see it everywhere. Is there any truth to it?
Yeah, probably the mail that I get the most often is what supplement should I take to increase my testosterone? And my response is always supplements really come last. Like they are the tip of the iceberg and will never move the needle that you really feel extreme boost, also not long lasting. Like the basis are nutrition, as Dom said, weight training, good sleep habits, stress management, and these kind of stuff. But when you ask for a hack and low budget thing you could do, it's probably just eating more liver, eggs, and they are like this superfoods in the true sense that they really give a huge amount of nutrients. And when you then you can basically skip all the supplements, all the B vitamins, all the multivitamins, etc., because they're so high in nutrients. Like these foods are probably eggs, liver, oyster, and then good quality fruit. That would be a really good stack.
Okay. You
Isn't there a placebo boost from believing that it's helping you? You just like kill our placebo. Sorry.
I know you mentioned oysters, and I know oysters tend to be high in zinc, and I very often hear, if you need mineral supplements, what is zinc and magnesium tend to be among the ones that men need most.
Yeah, there's this thing called ZMA, zinc, magnesium, and B vitamin complexes. It's popular, ZMA, and then you've got like what's this thing? Ashwagandha. That's an Indian thing, so zinc and magnesium.
Good. Any more guys on super hacks for increasing testosterone? Others would say thanks very much, Dom, for joining this evening.
Oh, thank you,
Dom.
Thank you, guys.
Good. They will
Have a
bring
good
in
night.
Mr.
Bye-bye.
Dibden. Cheerio, Dom. Thanks a lot. Good seeing you.
Cheerio.
And Alex is joining from down in South Africa. I know, where for some reason it's always like 1 minute before when I click admit, then it takes a whole minute for him to get in. So yeah, we can warm up with Sebastian's also said he's going to join in here. He was on our YouTube comments, so I'm going to add him as well. He's asked us. I'll give us the question so we can let it stew a little bit. Do you guys have any thoughts on the difference between taking responsibility for one's actions as opposed to the effects of one's actions? So I guess that means, I think this is mainly for you, Father Michael, because it's a little bit of a high level thing. But I think it means like, are we responsible just for our intentions, or are we responsible as well for all of the eventual, even unpredictable effects of what our actions cause, like what actually happens from
deep
something
moral question, and I don't know that I can answer that one in the abstract. I'm seeing his comment here. Maybe when he gets on, if he could re-ask the question.
Yeah, he's going to join us, so we can see if we can take it. It's a little bit outside of the testosterone view, but I think that it might be interesting, and it goes back to talking about responsibility.
Yeah, it would be low T to try to avoid the question, so I'll take
it. Challenging hard. I got to say, like, I'm really for when it comes to testosterone. Then for like 10 years ago, I found a Facebook account back when I thought Facebook was still cool, and hadn't seen how terrible Mark Zuckerberg, like that documentary film, was. But then I've been following an account called Testosterone and Civilization. And basically the only thing that they do is they post different pictures where it either says low T and then it has like a picture of like something, or it says high T and it has a picture of some other thing. Whatever thing is cool is high T, and whatever they think is uncool has low T.
Yes.
And I just like, it really kind of formed my understanding of these things. Good. Alex, are you with us?
Almost.
Yeah, he's there, but maybe not completely there. Can you hear us, Alex? We can't hear you, at least, and we can't see you either.
This is good conversation. Jacob, you have sweet insight here. I'm glad we got you on.
Yeah.
I do what?
I'm enjoying this.
What? I didn't understand. What do you enjoy?
I said thank you for being on. You have some sweet skills. You bring some great
yeah,
content
of course.
here.
It's an honor. It's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Hi, Alex.
It's a real pleasure to meet Jacob since he joined us in Core just 3 months ago, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have you now, Alex?
Yeah, I think I've finally arrived.
Good.
There he is.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing? I heard it's late where you are, right?
Yeah, it's about 10:30. Yeah, it's the same time as you.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, we shifted from summertime now.
The night.
Yeah.
Right, it's the middle of the night for you guys.
Not yet.
Yeah. So, what's the testosterone levels like down in South Africa, Alex? I've been following a little bit of what's happening in that country recently.
Well, sort of, it would probably not be a sort of a scientific analysis. It's more my opinion and just from my own sort of observation. And South African men play lots of sports, are outdoor kind of people. So I think eat lots of red meat. Things like that. So I think the testosterone levels are probably better here than in other parts of Europe and places like that. Yeah.
The pasty white parts of the world.
And of course we get lots of vitamin D from the sun. So lots of good things like that.
What's latitude where you are?
Oh, now you're asking me a question. I don't know, Father Mike.
You don't know? Okay, that's fine, because we're about 40, nearly 45 here. I just wondered how I know you're I never paid that close attention to it, but I don't know how far south you really are. You see,
I think the climate's similar in Cape Town to Mediterranean. Actually, they actually call it a Mediterranean climate because it's very similar in the way the Cape is has mountains that kind of surround down towards the ocean, and apparently there's a lot of similarities there. So they call it a Mediterranean climate there.
Okay, live and learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not that far south. We're not like talking Chile, like these really long countries.
Tierra del Fuego or something like that.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Did
you have a question for us, Alex?
I did. I was really interested in the discussion on the things that you need to look at in terms of testosterone levels, and what brings them down. For instance, diet, lifestyle, and that type of thing. But then you were also having this conversation, essentially about the infantization of the culture and of men in particular, the feminization of our culture, feminization of men. And I was wondering if there was if there were any studies that had been done that sort of draws a correlation between those things. So, if there's external things, events, and biology that affects testosterone levels, is there a psychological connection in terms of this cultural pressure on men and the way men are supposed to now live in this society?
Yeah, if there's explicit studies about that, I don't know, but there are some studies that maybe shed a light from a similar perspective. For example, your body language alone has an impact on your testosterone levels. If you take up space, make yourself bigger, testosterone levels rise. But if you contract yourself, make yourself small and everything, then testosterone levels decrease and cortisol goes up. And I think that maybe goes into this direction, that the way you act in the world and also your mentality affects your body, and that also affects your testosterone. But on this big scale, I actually don't know.
I might speak to it. I don't think it, from what studies I've seen, I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with testosterone levels, but simply from the fact that males mature later in life and more slowly than women do. So girls typically hit puberty a year or two younger than boys do. And you can watch even in high school age girls that a lot of those girls are much more mature mentally and emotionally than the boys of the same age. And boys catch up usually in their early 20s. It all has to do with development of prefrontal cortex, I understand. But eventually the boys can catch up and in some cases surpass the girls. But I think in some respects, it's just that we're slow to mature, you know, and so, you know, the aspects of like adolescent behavior lasts longer in boys than it does in girls, and even into early adulthood.
And if I was to add in my 2 cents, then what just makes me think is like, for me, different levels of reality are obviously connected. So the testosterone levels of the individual is connected to what we're seeing on Hollywood, the stories that we're receiving, or what we're reading in our newspapers. It's connected to the fertility rates of a nation. It's connected to the way that you interact with other people when you walk into a restaurant or into a church or something like that, and the way, you know, and I think there was a great example hearing about how, like, you know, if I'm constantly hearing about like Me Too and like men are evil and we're all a product of rape culture, and then I meet a beautiful woman, I'm gonna kind of feel small and, oh, I'm dangerous, oh, I need to be careful, you know, kind of thing, right? And so that's going to affect me in that physical level as well. But so there's this like beautiful kind of correlation and interaction of how things influence each other. And yeah, I mean, we've been touching a little bit on it, but let me just put it explicitly out there as well here now. Like, we're three Orthodox Christian guys, and I think part of the purpose of that, or the reason for that, that we're here together and that we're looking at these topics, is because we also believe that spiritual level actually underlines things. And so for me, when I look at the whole woke phenomenon, when I look at this feminization that's happening in our society, then there's an intelligence to what's happening here. And I think I can only really explain it. You know, you can go into all kinds of conspiracy theories, but there's actually a demonic spirit that's largely captured a very, very large part of our society, as we're denying the existence of God, basically, throughout the West. And what you're seeing is this kind of collapse into what, you know, looking at it from the perspective of the spirits or spirituality, then it's very clear that, like, you know, these things are fitting together, and there's an intelligence at work here, which isn't the product of just one, you know, person who's running the world. It's not like, you know, Klaus Schwab who's making all the decisions, or it's not like there's a council of Freemasons that are making all the decisions, right? But there is clearly some kind of intelligence which is creating weak men to be able to subjugate people and to degrade us as well. I think ultimately to kill us. That is actually what I think is happening. Did that answer your question, Alex?
Yeah, I think it answers my
question. You got a little more than you were
asking
for as well.
Ended in apocalypse, yes.
Yeah, how do we get there? Sorry, guys.
You were on a roll, Paul.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to use some big arm movements sometimes, right? Okay, good. Well, anything else, Alex? Otherwise, we're gonna bring in the next guy.
Well, maybe just a quick question in terms of maybe two parts to it. Is first of all, is to what extent are men aware of just how important testosterone levels are for things like sharpness, focus, attention, and all those really important things that you need to get ahead. And the other part of that question is, at what age should you sort of be having a look at your testosterone levels? You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. First, the awareness. In my experience, it's not there at all. It's mostly there in the bodybuilding scene, and they're just for muscle growth and this kind of stuff. And then 50 years upwards, when men start to see a decrease, and then they more and more get into it. But really, when's the time to make yourself familiar with it? It's like extremely early. Like, for example, and I got twin boys last year, and it's already relevant, because when you think about it, we put our babies in plastic pampers, and there are studies about this. When you, as a man, wear plastic or polyester pants all day, you get like infertile, because your balls can't produce anything, and it's totally totally toxic environment, and then you do it to your boys who are already producing testosterone. So it's best to start with it with this stuff as soon as possible. But
Are
really,
you saying my 1-year-old shouldn't be wearing a nappy? Like or is that what you're referring to? Like
yeah,
for a
yeah,
1-year-old boy?
it's better to get one from paper or from cloth, like the old school ones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, as early as possible, and really when you start to experience obvious low testosterone symptoms, even in your 20s, as I did actually, then it's a good time to look into it, because of how much levels declined since 40, 50 years.
There was this funny study. You in Europe won't know. In America, we have NPR, National Public Radio, which is public radio funded by the government, and is so left leaning. It is just known as the mouthpiece of the far left. And a number of their male reporters decided they would all have their testosterone levels checked, and they were all like, below low normal. They were all severely deficient, which kind of took them by surprise. Well, it didn't take the rest of us by surprise. We figured they were all low T men, if they're working for NPR. But if the point was that they were relatively young men, and by their own estimation, they were healthy and perfectly normal and doing well, but discovered on investigation that they were severely deficient. And so, yeah, I second what Jakob says. I don't know that you can start too young.
How does one get one's testosterone checked? What's the way to do it?
Yeah, exactly. Blood test. Yeah, there are many fancy other things like hair analysis and like with a saliva, but that's way too short-lived, and the blood is the most solid. Yeah.
And in Germany, you can just go to a doctor and ask him for it, and he'll do it for you.
Yeah. Probably you have to pay it yourself, but it's not that expensive. So yeah. And what's also important, that you really also take a look on the values by yourself, because the scale, the reference range, what they deem as normal, is just so big, and they also decreased it because the testosterone level decreased. So they say, yeah, normal is now lower than 50 years ago, so that's the new normal. But yeah, your biology doesn't care about what some scientist defines as normal. So you really have to look at it yourself. So the doctor doesn't just say, yeah, it's normal, and yeah, you should be good to go.
And the ranges typically cover everyone from young men or adolescent boys, teenagers, until men in their 60s, 70s, or 80s. So, yeah, it covers the range covers the whole spectrum. Yeah.
Okay, but you can't like get a mail order blood test to do this or something like that. You'd normally just do it through the public health system in Europe. I'm asking mainly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And in America, you can go to a public lab like LabCorp and ask to have it done. Okay. Again, you pay for it, but you pay for anything that's not medically indicated. But when men go to the doctor, you could ask, would you just check my testosterone levels, total testosterone, free testosterone, and estrogen or estradiol levels? Maybe Jakob, would that be your recommendation too?
Yeah, in my work, I would recommend some other values as well, but I think that's a good start. Yeah.
Yeah, sex hormone binding globulin, and probably your thyroid and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but just ask it in, when you go to the doctor for your annual checkup, or when you go get your lab work done, whether that's once a year or every other year or something, just ask to have that done too.
I'm still this old generation that doesn't go to the doctor unless I really, really have to. But I guess that's a South African thing. Alex, I saw Alex nodding.
Go to the doctor.
Sounds like it might be a good idea to go do it. Good. Alex, thanks very much. Great having you in here.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Appreciate it. We're going to let in I think it'll be the last question that we're going to take for today. Briggy and Sebastian. And maybe Alex, do you want to hang around while you're here? Maybe you have something to add for us.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, we'll just keep you on board. And Sebastian, can you hear us?
Oh yeah. Hey guys, do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Yes,
you. Loud
perfect.
and
Hi.
clear.
All right. Let me just
Yeah.
minimize
Welcome.
the screen.
You're live.
Well, yeah, you got me. Well, thanks for having me. It's I'm new to the channel, but I'm liking it so far.
Well, good. We had
Where
a
are
couple
you?
of old faces on, so now we have someone new as well. So that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, definitely.
Is it a bit of a Danish accent?
Yeah. Fyn accent, actually.
Oh, really?
He's on
Okay.
Yeah.
Fyn.
Yeah.
And
I
you're
have been to
within,
Fyn.
yeah.
Yeah.
Paul
Then you're
lives
not that
there.
far from me because I'm close to Fåborg in a little town called Hostrup.
Yeah. Fåborg. I know about Fåborg. My name is from Fåborg, so I'm not unfamiliar. I'm in Odense. I actually go to the well, recently started going to the Orthodox can't call it a church, I guess, in Odense, in Western Odense.
Okay.
If you know about that one.
Is it the Romanian?
Yeah.
Yeah, with Father Daniel.
Yes.
I was just talking to Father Daniel earlier today on the phone while he was
Okay.
busy mowing his lawn. I know him very well. Yeah. Actually, he's a part of one of the Maniphesto Core groups. Yeah, so great. There's been a whole lot of young new guys coming in there over the last couple of months, which is apparently a global phenomenon that we're seeing all over the place.
Yeah. A lot of stuff happening with young men, definitely.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we might just get to see each other elsewhere than just on YouTube as well sometime.
Maybe you could hope.
So yeah, we did air. I don't know if you heard it. We aired your question, and Father Michael said it might be good to get you to rephrase it for us, and maybe if you could give specific context or an example, that might even help as well.
Yeah, Michael, you said that it was a very deep question. It wasn't intended as such, honestly. But I see your point. Where's my question? Yeah, so you only have what, 80 characters in the chat?
The difference between taking responsibility for one's actions as opposed to the effects.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's an age-old question, honestly. I'm a student of psychology, so my recognition with philosophy as a science is kind of, I don't know, practical, surface level. But still, I mean, it's a big part of science necessarily. So my main question was just, well, how do you guys solve that? Because I feel like in this type of zeitgeist we are in today in Scandinavia, or maybe just the Western society in general, young people especially can't really solve that responsibility issue, where to place it, right? So it's very easy to be tempted and think, oh well, I need to be responsible for what everybody else thinks about me, and what the effects of my actions are, while I guess the ancient wisdom doesn't even have to be that ancient, would say, well, you're just little puny you can only really be responsible of your own heart, right?
Maybe I can speak to that much. I think because we were talking about agency earlier, and to cite an American author and former Navy SEAL, Jakob. There's Paul. He's got the book. Yeah, extreme.
This was my plan when I was getting to get to talk.
Okay, there you go. You pulled it. Okay, I don't have to go to. I have it on my bookshelf over here as well. Now, I think one of the things that's the most practical and helpful thing that I found is to take responsibilities for as much as you possibly can. And if you'll discover, once you're in a position of leadership, everything that goes right belongs to the people that you supervise. That is their success. Everything that goes wrong belongs to you. And you take as much responsibility as you can for yourself and for life. And if you're lacking in some area, then get the training that you need. But go ahead and shoulder as much responsibility, because even as Jordan Peterson will say, meaningful responsibility or significant responsibility or meaningful responsibility is what gives genuine joy to life and gives genuine meaning to our life. And just avoid playing the victim, because when you play the victim, then you give away your own agency and your own power to somebody else. So try to stand as much as you can on your own. That doesn't mean that we're isolated and we live in silos, separated from each other. Mm-hmm. Or that we're atomistic and individualistic. But if we can take as much responsibility as possible for ourselves and try to shoulder a little responsibility for our brother, we encourage them to do the same thing and help them up. And so our ability to be responsible becomes a gift to them and helps to raise them up as well. I mean, this is what parents do for their children too. And Alex, am I speaking truth here?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%.
Okay, thank you. Paul, did I say anything out of line?
No, I mean, the only thing I think that the risk can be that people collapse in guilt and, you know, that there's definitely a part of the sickness of our society today is a excessive kind of, I'd almost call it a narcissistic navel gazing kind of like, oh, we're so bad, we're so terrible, you know, the whole you know, as white colonial powers or something like that.
And risk
it's not really a taking responsibility, right? It's more, I don't know, can you differentiate that for us then? What's going wrong there? Because people still wanting to pay slave reparations, for example, today in the United States, like, aren't they just trying to take responsibility for something that's a little bit further away from themselves?
Well, start with yourself, you know, but, you know, on the other hand, okay, there's the balance, I suppose. On the other hand, I mean, reasonable boundaries as well. You know, we are not Christ. We do not take on the sins of the world. Okay. Let's leave that up to him. But be responsible for our own lives. And I think there are reasonable grounds. What is your own proper domain? For what are you responsible for? Yeah, for what are you responsible? And make sure that you take full responsibility for that. You know, if it be, you know, to do well in school, to do well at your job, you know, you mentioned you're attending an Orthodox church, so to grow as a Christian man in the likeness of Christ, you know, to be a husband and a father, you know, if you're married, you know, if you have children, then make sure that you are fulfilling those responsibilities as much as you can, and in a way that's, you know, that's affirming and life affirming and joyful and encouraging for them, as for everybody around you as well. I think it makes for human, you know, you want to look at old things, you have to go back and look at what, you know, Plato and Aristotle and the Stoics said about human flourishing, you know, evdaimonia, you know, what is the optimal life. And it is largely a matter of, you know, of virtue, really. You know,
there's also something, isn't there something as well around, I take responsibility for my own actions, but there's something about like collective guilt, which seems to be a hang up of a lot of the West. As far as I understand it, it comes from a distortion and a misinterpretation or an exaggeration of something that St. Augustine wrote, that's kind of been even taken further, and to where we today have this massive focus on our guilt as a collective, whereas that isn't actually a part of the Orthodox faith whatsoever. The idea of we don't believe in the inherited guilt either. We believe in we believe in the fall, and that we have a fallen nature now as human beings, but we don't actually believe that we participate in the guilt of Adam as a small child, for example. So a child who,
yeah, that's true.
So
I don't know, the sort of the collective thing. I think it's individual responsibility written large, but I don't know what am I supposed to do? Always be kowtowing to popular opinion, follow the woke, check in with the woke crowd today to find out what I'm supposed to be offended by. Well, I'm a white male and a Christian, so actually, you know, I have no right to be offended. What am I supposed to apologize for today? You know, really, no, at some point, no, I am not responsible for the actions of my ancestors, and no, I am not privileged by it either. You know, I got here by clawing my way up to where I am today. I earned every bit of it with sweat. So I don't know. Maybe that's American arrogance. I don't know.
I also believe that taking responsibility and being sort of an honest and real responsibility is based on your own value system and virtue. And so when you're trying to take responsibility for things that are far from you, it's because you don't have that value system and therefore that virtue. And so you're taking hold of a false virtue to feel virtuous, because there isn't a real virtue within your own value system.
Yeah, And I was just thinking, because we were just, I was talking with someone else the other day about the story of the rich man and Lazarus. So yes, I can be concerned for, poor people around the world, but if I'm ignoring the poor man who's sitting at my very doorstep, then I've missed the point completely. And there are some people like that. Oh, they're concerned for global warming, but they're not concerned for, the child next door, who maybe goes home to an empty house. I don't know. It's hard to pull examples out, but yeah, we do make ourselves feel good by being concerned about large issues. But I can't do anything about large issues. I can take care of, as the French say, je cultive mon petit jardin. I just cultivate my own little garden here and make sure that my own responsibilities are well taken care of. And I think if we can do that well, at least I can sleep with my conscience at night.
I think what Alex said about like our taking responsibilities actually built on inherent, often hidden assumptions about what has value, what the good and what evil is. And I think we're seeing how we kind of, I think for all of human history, we've kind of assumed like that's, well, not only, but in the last recent history, we kind of assumed those are things are kind of fixed. But we're actually seeing more and more how values and virtues can become incredibly distorted and changed. And like, even science is telling us today things that we thought were like just completely ridiculous not that long ago. So yeah, I absolutely agree. When I think about this, like, where do I learn to take responsibility as a man? Well, primarily it's in relationship to my wife, and it's in my relationship to my children. And so it's the things that are closest to me. That's where I'm actually growing as a human being and doing this. And if I start thinking too much about like, well, how am I influencing global warming? Because someone wants to build a whole lot of sun solar panels out here where I live, right, just in my backyard, basically. It's like, yeah, that's a little bit too far away from me. I think.
And to bring it back grounded a little more in our own Orthodox practice, the Russians have a beautiful word for what Paul was just talking about, and that is podvig. Alex might like this word. It's a podvig, and it means your ascetical struggle. That is the individual cross which you bear, that you work out your salvation. So for Paul's case is to be a husband and to be a father. He doesn't have pastoral responsibilities like I do. Part of my podvig is to be a priest and to be a spiritual father for people. So each man's podvig will be different, but those are the areas of responsibility where he needs to step up, because his entire salvation is wrapped up in those things. And to neglect them does drag us down. And it's exactly what Alex was talking about in being virtuous. Does that make sense? Are we at least dancing around your question, Sebastian? If we're not answering it exactly, it's a difficult thing.
Definitely. I mean, I was kind of cheating because it wasn't really a question. Didn't I just ask for your thoughts? Yeah. So not really an easy answer.
So you'll never do that again.
Yeah. Well, my bad. But no, I'm really happy that you mentioned the Lazarus story, and I'm not familiar with it, but I got the gist of it. And then, I mean, it really probed into what the essence of my question was really motivated by, which was, and I don't think I have to make a case for this, but I think there's a temptation, and as I think you said, Paul, to take responsibility of these really far out things like global warming or whatever. It could be any politically motivated or non-political thing. To get this faux responsibility, faux honor, faux identity, really. But then something you said regarding that, Michael, I just want to rephrase the question then in the light of this whole answer. So is responsibility in an Orthodox sense? I mean, is it given or is it taken? Because the way you talk about responsibility today is you take it, and okay, my wife, my kids, my family. Yeah. Sorry.
I think it's both. Some things are given. As Paul was saying earlier, being men, we tend to be a little more expendable than women, and that's just sort of biological. So I mean that has rights and responsibilities that go with being male. So some things are given, but some things are also assumed and are taken, and I think that varies. you know, I've taken different responsibilities at different stages of my life. And there are others that have been imposed upon me. You know, if I ever complain, it's because the burdens, you know, of being a parish priest, you know, I don't always like the burdens I have to bear, you know, but when someone needs me, I have to be there to respond to them and to take care of their needs, you know, whether I'm in the middle of dinner or not, you know, but that's simply part of it. And to learn to take those responsibilities graciously, you know, and to try to find the blessing that's hidden in them, to where I can do those things, even if they're inconvenient. I can do them with grace and can still do them with love, and see them not only, you know, as genuine gifts of charity to the person who needs my help, but it's also for my own benefit, that I learn to be patient and I learn to set aside my own selfish desires in order to be available to my people. So I think you're slicing and dicing it. You're making too fine a distinctions. Just
well, couldn't one use the word synergy here, like in like, you know, the same way that like we achieve our salvation through a synergy between God's will and man's will, and responsibility is part of the way that we do that, and it's something that comes down to us from above, but it's something that we also step up and take as well. And if I try to take responsibilities for things that are not, no one wants me to take responsibility for, sometimes that's actually going to be met by pushback, right? So it needs to be given to a certain extent, but I also need to actively take it, because if I'm not doing that, so they're so yeah, ideally they work together, I would say. Guys, we need to bring things to a close. We've hit the 1.5 hour mark, and I know Father Michael needs to get moving on with his day.
Y'all should go to bed. You know, nothing good happens after 11.
We just like talking to you, Father Michael, looking at your face till late in the evening. Yeah. So,
I have my late evening responsibilities too tonight. So yes, arena meets tonight at 9 o'clock my time.
Oh yeah, that's
3 a.m. your time. So
yeah,
y'all should. Good Christian men should be abed.
Okay. I guess there's not too many of those here. Thank you, guys. I just want to, Sebastian, great meeting you. It was nice to have you on board. Thanks for coming around, and hope to see you again. And I'll just mention here at the close that we are having a retreat this June, where Father Michael, myself, and 8 other guys are going to be coming to the John the Baptist Monastery in the United Kingdom, run by Elder Zacharias, an amazing man. I was there myself as a catechumen, and it really set the tone for my journey into Christianity some 5-6 years ago. So we're really looking forward to having that small group. I think there's a couple of places left still, and so one can contact either Father Michael or myself if anyone's interested in that. And otherwise, we're running Maniphesto Core, which is a network of online groups of guys that are meeting every week and supporting each other to take responsibility, I guess. It's good to have Sebastian bring that on here. The practical work of it. We try and not philosophize about it too much on Core, but try and just do it actually with the small little everyday things, especially. Anything, Father Michael, that you want to add before we close it off? Alex, Jacob?
It's been great, and it's been very pleasant to meet Jacob too. I've appreciated everything that you brought to the conversation today. This is wonderful.
Thank you. It was really a nice talking to you. And also to mention it, I'm also a member of Maniphesto, so in Core. So maybe that's a good thing to add at the end. And so far, really in the true sense of the word, life changing, because alone the accountability aspect, and then setting your goal, developing your vision, going in the beginning with Alex, and then looking for your group. So really, really great experience.
Yeah, thanks very much. And it's been a real pleasure to have you come in and start contributing right away, Jacob. It's been a real pleasure. So thanks very much. Great. And Alex, great to see you. Thanks, Jack. Alex is our stable, solid guy who's always there and supporting and doing a lot of the onboarding work as well on Core. So that's great. So I think with that, we'll say thank you very much for this evening. Much appreciated. And we'll be probably doing this again in about a month's time, I imagine. So look out for that.
I'm game.
Good.
All right. Good evening.
Thank you very much, Jacob. And I hit the stop on the